space and time. Okay, time can limit. Okay, so I'm very happy to welcome Shivika and Narang. Shivika is here from practically the other end of the earth. So there's a website which tells you on the other end of the earth is very, very close to where Shivika is from. So Shivika is a professional in Sydney University of New South Wales.
The time difference is only a few hours.
Time and a half.
The time difference is only a few hours. How is it possible?
Right. That's true. That's true. I'm not exactly sure how that is.
But your question and comment in the introduction.
So, yes, in the open questions part of the. But yeah, so Shivika is a postdoc at University of New South Wales. She was a postdoc at Simon Lauper Math Institute in Berkeley earlier. And even before that, she was a PhD student at ISC. She works on various problems with social choice. She'll be telling us about some of those problems today.
Thank you, first of all, for having me. I think this is the largest talk I've given, so I'll try to have anyone fall asleep at 4 p.m. Yeah, so I thank you for prompting my intro. I'm currently a postdoc. I'm working with Harris Aziz and Toby Walsh at UNSW. I was at SL Maths, formerly called MSRI in Berkeley for 1 semester. And I was at IISc before that doing my PhD, where towards the end I had gone and visited Rohit Vesh for a summer at IIT Delhi. Before that I was at Penn State for a semester. So I have a lot of airline miles, I guess. But yes, my work overall is in the field of game theory and mechanism design, specifically social choice. And my work, what it tries to do is I try to design provably fair and efficient algorithms that make collective decisions for societal problems. Societal, not in a very dramatic politician kind of way, but everyday problems that might come up as you are going through, life. And there's a huge range of motivating examples, starting from labor markets and especially the resident doctors to hospitals. So this specific thing, the match, is this is a program started by Alvin Roth, who famously won a Nobel Prize for his work in stable matching. And this started in 1955, still being used to this day in the US for matching resident doctors to hospitals. Then another application is college admissions and course allocation, where
Is that a matching or an assignment?
course allocation can be
No, even resident doctors.
no, it is a hospitals still have preferences.
Yeah, but
Over
you're not
that.
matching 1-to-1, right? So
It's a many-to-one matching.
Hmm.
So yeah, like matching is a very loose term for someone like me. Many-to-many matchings are also matchings for us. But yes. So college admissions course allocation led to this platform called Schedule Scout, which helps universities balance student intake across courses depending on their interests. Another huge thing is ride-hailing platforms, which I guess everyone here is quite familiar with ride-hailing platforms. And something currently being very widely studied is kidney exchange. So kidney exchange is something that, I don't know why this isn't showing up, but kidney exchange is something that's being studied from an angle like economically, algorithmically across the world by a lot of people like working with hospitals in situ and trying to understand good ways to do kidney exchange, where say you have a person who needs a donor kidney, but the people around this person are not good matches. So finding such people and exchanging donor kidneys to find good solutions is a huge area. And these are all motivating applications. My specific set of work is focused currently, especially on achieving fairness and or efficiency. Largely, this falls under the domain of fair division, and matchings, or rather specifically stable matchings, are some things I'm very interested in. And a lot of the work I have done has looked at developing newer models that are sort of more inspired by realistic situations, and then trying to find good, fair, and efficient solutions there. But also quite a bit of work on resolving existing open questions. So just this is just a summary of my currently published work for context. But yes, so today's talk will be focused on matching agents with locations. These might be two buzzwords. So what do I mean by agents? Agents for me is any kind of autonomous being who has preferences over outcomes. This could be one person, it could be a group of people, it could be a self-driving car, it could be a generative AI agent, your pick, as long as they have some preferences and potential, some amount of autonomy in what they choose to do. That's an agent for me. A location vaguely will be a point in a metric space, right? And this vague setting can represent any number of existing examples, starting from ride-hailing platforms. Again, where when you request a cab, you get matched to the driver gets matched to your current and destination location. If you want to place a public facility like a library, this is the State Library of Sydney, very nice place to visit if you do come to Sydney. An airport, a hospital, any sort of public facility, people get matched to the one closest to them implicitly, right? You might want to assign hostel rooms to students or shared offices, right? Or maybe you have ordered something from the various online shopping websites, and the delivery people have to be matched to your parcel, right? There's a whole range of examples. My talk today is focused on the last two. So I will start with the work on assigning hostel rooms. So sorry, there seems to be a lag in the Zoom, but yes. So this is joint work with Hadi Hosseini at Penn State and Somjit Naroy at ISI. And this was published at this year's AAAI. So the motivation here is, and many of you might have heard that efficiently matching agents to other agents or agents to houses items has been very well studied, but this is typically done separately, right? But in practice, you will often have to match agents with other agents as well as items, such as you want to maybe assign shared hostel rooms, shared offices. You might want to pair students for group projects. And in this case, you will have preferences over both dimensions of your matching. So your partner as well as the shared resource or the project topic. But most of the work that's already existing is only considering preferences on one of these dimensions. There is literally a handful of prior papers that looked at these sort of roommate matchings where you do have preferences over I'm
What's the
sorry.
issue? What is the issue?
No, there's just lagging. But yeah, yes. So you have a handful of papers on roommate matching. So you have where they consider preferences over your roommate as well as your room, but all of these consider these additive utilities, which are sort of substitutionary. So my ultimate utility is the sum of my value for my roommate as well as my room. This need not really happen in practice. Let me look at an example. Suppose you have someone who's looking to share an apartment, right? So she's looking for a roommate. You have this doctor. So she goes and looks on online. Maybe a few years ago, she might have looked in a newspaper, but she looks online and sees these three different people are advertising a room for rent in their apartment. And all of these three people really like their apartment. So now she needs to find a good match for her, right? So the doctor likes the engineer's apartment the most. So she approaches the engineer first. But turns out the engineer and the doctor don't like each other. They are completely different personalities. They don't get along. So it would be a bad outcome for both of them because even though the apartment is great, both of them would be miserable because of each other, right? The doctor then disregards the engineer and then goes to the chemist, whom she feels she's a better, more compatible fit. But now she hates the chemist's apartment. It's too far from where she works. It would not be a suitable solution. So even though for the chemist it would be great because she gets a great roommate as well as a room, the doctor would still be very unhappy. Finally, she can approach the astronaut, who again might be very compatible. And turns out this apartment is actually acceptable. So for the astronaut, again, this is a great solution. And for the doctor, it's reasonably happy. So this would be a better outcome for her. Now, motivated by these sort of settings, we introduce something called Leontief utilities. So Leontief utilities are the space where your utility is the value for the worst thing you are matched to. So minimum of your 2 dimensions of values. And you would like to find solutions that give you good outcomes, but so maximize the sum of everyone's utilities. But a big problem there can be strategic behavior. So people's actual true values will typically be private information, right? No one will come and tell you, oh, I like this one's apartment more or that. That is their business. And if you are strategic and smart, you will often try to manipulate the outcome by misreporting. This is logical and also seen a lot in practice where people try and lie and get better outcomes. So if people are lying, we really cannot be sure of what kind of guarantees we are getting from our algorithms in practice. So what we try to do as game theorists is try and design strategy proof mechanisms. So you want mechanisms where even if a person would lie, they cannot benefit by lying. So if you are applying for a job, you need to be honest about how good you are, right? Now, the problem with strategy proofness typically is it is very, very incompatible with maximizing the welfare or the sum of the utilities. This is a very old result by Green and Lafont, right? So our aim in this paper is, can we still try to do something? Can we still get good guarantees on social welfare under strategy proof mechanisms? Can we use some sort of realistic structure? Can we find some useful assumptions which will allow us to get good guarantees on social welfare? Right? So with that in mind, let me get into the model. So you have 2n agents and n rooms, right? So you want 2 agents to a room. Each agent has 2 sets of valuation functions. Vi of j, which is the value agent I has for j, and vi hat of r. So hat is like the roof of the house, just for a quick reference, right? And you want to pair agents and match them to a room. So two agents to one room. Utilities could be additive or Leontief, and our aim is to maximize the sum of these utilities, which we will call social welfare. For a case of strategy-based mechanisms, so mechanisms where there is no incentive to misreport either of these valuation functions. Again, this is incompatible and we find strong incompatibility for general settings. But then we are also able to identify some useful assumptions such as binary valuations, which allow us to get better results. So binary valuations will mean my values are either 0 or 1. I like this room, I don't like this room. I like this person, I don't like this person. And symmetric valuations is another thing where, oh, if I think this is a good roommate, they will also agree. Or if I think they're a bad roommate, they should also agree. Right? So with this in mind, let me quickly, yes. Yes. Oh God. Sorry, this fancy section zoom.
Right, social welfare is sum for
All of the agents.
two N agents, right?
Yes.
And what is being reported to whom?
So you have so we assume both the valuation functions have to be reported. We know the number of agents.
Right,
And
so
the
there's a
rules.
centralized algorithm which is going
Yes.
to assign this.
Yes.
After
So
recording all the
Value.
VIs and VI hats.
yes. Yes. So yes.
When you said there are like we know of incompatibility, do you mean that if you generally allow real number values for these, then there are instances where any strategy proof system design will
Yeah.
will have very bad social welfare?
So there is this standard sort. This is a very general result from the 1979 by Green and Lafont, which says if you have no restrictions on the underlying space, no matter how the utilities are coming, whatever utility function, if you want maximum social welfare, the sum of the utilities, then it will not be strategy proof. Right? Sometimes you can get approximations, but very often the approximations allow you to lie. Still, like if even if you want, rather than a exact max welfare, you want approximate welfare, sometimes you can still lie. I'll in fact give such an example here. Right? But very often if you know something about the underlying preferences, then that allows you to be a lot more restrictive. Right? Which is what happens here. Right? Okay.
So sorry.
Yes.
So you don't just want that so one thing is that okay, can I get at least half of the best social welfare in a way that as in there is a way for everyone to report their the correct values for VI or VI hat while ensuring. So one thing is that you hope that people report it correctly, and there is a way for them to report it correctly so that the social welfare is pretty good. The other is you want good social welfare while necessarily requiring everyone to.
So this is second.
So you want that.
Yes. So we are restricted to the space of strategy proofness, where we want that if someone misreports, they cannot improve their individual outcome. And on this condition, what is the best guarantee on social welfare that we get? Okay. And again, these are very incompatible sort of objectives. But what our contributions, what we do is we first study social welfare alone without the requirement of strategy proofness. And it was already known that this is an NP complete problem for the additive case. This is just known to be NP complete. We give a stronger inapproximability result. Basically, it's not a very strong inapproximability result. You can still have constant time approximations. It's just you can't have an FP-TAS or a P-TAS. Here, and this is true even for binary with Leontief utilities. So with that in mind, we also talk about maximal matching algorithms because those had not been studied in this space at all. These maximal matching algorithms actually help us quite a bit later on, but what we find is that if you do not restrict the underlying valuations, you cannot have any non-zero approximation to social welfare, then you are constrained on strategy proofness. So the immediate thing is, okay, what if we can restrict our valuations? So we look at binary setting and we look at, okay, what is the minimum guarantee that you cannot achieve? What is the minimum possible guarantee unachievable for strategy proofness? For binary with additive, it's actually 2/3. What that means is anytime you want to give more than a 2/3 approximation to welfare, you cannot be strategy proof. Or rather, anytime you want to be strategy proof, you can't do better than a 2/3 approximation. And this is with exponential time, whatever time algorithms. If you have binary and symmetric, this bound improves to 3/4. And for what our main result is that for the binary Leontief case, we only have the trivial upper bound. That is to say that we actually give a maximum welfare strategy proof mechanism for the space. Right? this is going to be an exponential time algorithm because it's APX hard. It's not a polytime mechanism. So the next thing we had in mind was what can we do within polytime? And so we get a bunch of polytime mechanisms which are actually from our maximal matching algorithms. And they give some guarantees. These are obviously non-optimal, but I won't be getting into these things today. So
Are those bounds right?
no,
2 by 3. Okay.
2 by 3 is as in we know that you can't do better than 2 by 3. We don't know anything that does 2 by 3.
But 1.
One is 10. One is 10. One is 10. I mean, this is, you have a maximum welfare strategy proof mechanism. So one is a tight trivial upper bound. But, and I mean, that you obviously can't do in polytime. We don't know what the best upper bound in polytime is for the binary Leontief case.
The inapproximability result is for general additive or?
No, binary. All of our hardness results are for binary and symmetric. So yeah.
Sorry.
No, the second sentence, right?
Oh yes. So general alpha is for Leontief as well as additive.
One question.
Yes.
So if you're doing it in EXP time, you can just brute force soon.
Yes, but even then you can't be strategy proof. You can find and so I'll just get into the example, right? So for the example, we'll look at a very simple example. You have 4 agents, right? So whenever you see an edge, there's a value of 1. So A1 has a value of 1 for R1. A1 and A2 have a value of 1 for each other. A4 has no value for anyone or anything. No one likes A4, right? So underlying it's binary, but the mechanism has no assumptions right now, right? So here there are 2 max welfare matchings, either with additive or with Leontief, right? Either A1 and A2 go to R1 or A2 and A3 go to R1. Those are your only 2 maximum welfare solutions. In either of those 2 settings, A2 and A4 are indifferent, right? They get the same value either ways. If A1 does not get matched to A2, A1 wants to do whatever they can to lie and manipulate and get matched to A2. So what A1 can do is, if you're saying, okay, I want at least alpha approximation, A1 can just scale up their reported values for A2 and R1 in such a way that the only way to get an alpha approximation to social welfare would be match A1, A2, R1. Right? Because, and this is only possible because you don't have an underlying restriction on what are the underlying values. Similarly, if you say, okay, I'll match A1, since A1 is going to lie, let me match A1 to A2, A3 can do the same thing. Right? So even if you can do an exponential search, you have all of the computational power in the world, you still cannot incentivize honesty without some assumptions on valuations.
No, they are integer, right? The 0 or 1.
Yes, their actual values are integer, but if you do not have an assumption that their values are 0 or 1, you can report a higher integer, right? You can report
Binary 0 or 1.
yes, but it's happening in a case where you don't assume binary.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right? Those values might as well be 0 and 2 million.
Okay.
Right? Or one person has 0, 2 million, the other person has 0 and 5 million or whatever. They can still misreport their preferences, scale up and down, whatever they need. And it's just the scale will be, so whether you scale one value, both values will depend on additive versus Leontief. For Leontief, you have to scale both. With additive, you might just scale one, right? But in either setting, you have an incentive to lie, right? Now, suppose you say, okay, like you said, it's binary, let's assume it's binary. You still cannot do better than 2/3, right? So I'll give a similar example. Now, A1 and A3 don't care about R1 and A2 does not care about their roommate, right? So again, you have 2 max welfare matchings. A1, A2 and R1 or A3, A2 and R1. Okay? Both will give you a social welfare of 2. One person gets a roommate they like, the other person gets a nice room. Again, A1 and A3 can pretend to like R1. They can't increase their value for A2, but they can pretend to like R1 and get matched to A2 and pretend and overall give a social welfare of 3. So any more than 2/3 approximation has to be, in this case, an exact max welfare thing, right? So again, this is a hopefully straightforward example, right? And the same example, if you now assume symmetric preferences, it gives you 3/4 bound. But this needs additivity. This does not extend to Leontief, because in Leontief, if I'm going to get a bad room, I don't care who my roommate is. I might as well get a bad roommate as well. Right? So we use those ideas and talk about we give a max welfare and strategy proof mechanism for binary Leontief. Again, this is an APX hard. The underlying welfare maximization problem is APX hard, so we don't give exponential time. We don't give poly time, but we give 2 exponential time algorithms, one faster than the other, or rather mechanisms. And okay, so the first one is very much going off of the first brute force suggestion, where you first find all max welfare matchings. Okay, I'm going to call this set S0. All of these matchings are S0. And then what we do is we line up the agents based on their labels.
But
And-
Shikhar, like when you say
Yes.
matchings, you mean like you're matching a roommate and a room?
Yes.
Like, okay.
Yes.
The
So this
triplets you're
is
kind of.
like a
Yeah.
3-pair matching. This is what I'm calling a roommate matching.
Okay.
So you find all of these max welfare matchings. Now, this is welfare set. That's our initial welfare set. Now we slowly reduce. So each agent comes one at a time and discards all the matchings that do not maximize their values, right? So you take the previous agent set and only select from those that maximize your own value. Once every agent has done this, we just pick arbitrarily from S to N. Quick example, we had these 2 max welfare matchings, which gives us this set S0. If agent 1 comes, agent 1 wants to be matched to A2. So selects mu1, discards mu2, right? Now, all of the other agents can only select from the previous agent set. So you end up with just mu1 as your ultimate solution, right? That's even though S3 would like mu2, cannot select it because already it has been discarded.
So the order matters.
The order matters in the ultimate solution you pick, right? So if we had picked 3 first, 3 before 1, then mu2 would have been selected rather than mu1. But as long as the order is arbitrary and not dependent on the agent's valuations,
No, it can. My point is, it can get unfair. Can't it?
yes, it will. This is not fair. This is just efficient. Efficiency is not fair, unfortunately. Yes, so with this in mind, so you have this mechanism. It is strategy proof. I am not going to get into why it is strategy proof right now, but clearly it is correct in that it does find a max welfare matching because we have done all of the hard work of finding it. But the problem is it's very, very inefficient because you have so many different possible matchings. What we do now is we actually improve this using a 3-set packing solver. So this, yes, I will skip this part. So the way we use a 3-set packing solver is is in this mechanism I'm going to call precedence-based search mechanism.
One question.
Yes,
So instead of looking at all possible
yes.
maximum solutions, suppose you looked at any one particular solution and then you did the same.
That's what we're doing. Let me just, but yes, that's the idea. So, yes, so you have, precedence-based search mechanism, and the way we want to look for things is based on the highest welfare solution, right? So now you have binary and LeonTF. So each agent can have value of at most 1. You have 2n agents. Social welfare can be at most 2n, right? So what we're going to do is we have an underlying precedence ordering, as you pointed out, based on the agents. So for each value of welfare, we first pick the highest precedence set of agents that we have not tried, right? Of this size. This set of agents, what we will do is, for this set of agents, we select all the triples. So triples are 2 agents, 1 room triples, and you select a triple only if both agents get value 1, if and only if they are in this set, right? If they are in this set and they get value 1, you can select this triple. And now we use a 3-set packing solver to check if a complete matching is possible here. And the minute you find a complete matching, you stop. So that's exactly what you said, was we look for one highest welfare solution possible and we stop. Now, again, so because we are using a 3-set packing solver, this runs in time O star C to the n. I'm hiding all polytime factors in this O star notation. The C depends on whether you use a randomized or a deterministic 3-set packing solver, but yes. And correctness is kind of straightforward because you are going through everything and you stop at the first one. Strategy proofness is a lot less straightforward, and I'm again skipping it for time. But the way we show strategy proofness here is you show that it will always return the same solution as the one we have from the mechanism we just discussed before. Right, so in the interest of time, I'll stop talking about this. Yes.
Sorry, but then it's a statement that the earlier algorithm will return exactly 1 matching. There's no set of matchings there.
Yes. So you pick arbitrarily from the last set.
Okay.
If you use the same arbitrary picking, the tie-breaking thing, then you
I see.
choose the same one.
Okay.
So this preferences are what? This is the indexing of the agents.
Preferences,
Yeah, it's just an indexing. Okay.
yes.
Because that has, that can change the answer.
No, preferences don't determine the indexing of the agents.
Yeah.
That can change.
Yes.
Like when she says preference, she just means the indexing of the and
Pref
yeah, and that
index,
will
not
change.
preference.
Yeah,
That will
but that can
change.
change
Yes.
which particular matching.
Yes,
Yes.
it will.
So it has to be same.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
that's
with the same precedence ordering. So I was a little less formal here. We use, in the paper, we talk about a fixed ordering over the agent sigma, and then you use the same ordering here. Based off of that, if you use the same ordering and the same tie-breaking rule, you always return the same solution.
Wait.
Yes.
What is precedence?
So you had a labeling on the agents for this thing, right? So that's your underlying precedence then. The order, yes.
Okay, order.
Yes,
Good question. So maybe a little bit unrelated. But so in things probably, so you're not looking at money. So in the absence of any
this is not with money.
okay. But if you introduce money, so does so what happens? So then the hardness changes or
No, so even if you're looking at money, so the first paper, the one which I cited for the NP completeness, they looked at a setting with rent. But if your goal is just social welfare maximization irrespective of the rents, then the problem is still NP hard.
And also the Leon kept setting money doesn't. So it's a binary.
there is a value, you have some value, but so let's say you can get some real amount of money.
Sure.
Let's say between
It's
this.
a quasi linear income.
Yes, but you still like the same thing will still, if the rent is less than 1, you still want a positive utility.
Right.
So it would be the same thing, right? If your rent is 1 and you get
You
matched.
can have some fraction, right?
Yes, but even if you have a fraction, to maximize your utility, you should
Right.
get a
Okay.
utility of 1. So yes, the utility function would be a little more complicated because we say utility is value minus price, but say the minimum of the two minus the price, if you go, it would still end up being the same thing.
Okay, one question.
Yes.
So suppose every agent responds to the third parameter, which is the how much they care about the roommate and how much they care about the
Room.
The room.
Yes.
And then we are in the additive benchmark only. Can the roommates report the so now you remove this so now you remove lambda. Can the roommates report these other two preferences such that this lambda is factored in the additive benchmark only? Is the question of frequency?
Okay. No, sure, you can fit that into an additive way. So you're saying that, okay, I have, so what, okay, just to clarify what you're asking is, you have some weight on the roommate, on the room
Yes.
and the roommate, and again, you still have binary values for each?
No.
No.
Mm.
So in additive, you can have the one side of it scaled up by that much.
Yeah.
relatively.
So you don't need the lambda.
Yeah, you don't need lambda separately. It would make sense if you had different types of utility functions where, say, or like different ways of reporting things, right? So say everyone, so there's like single parameter environments and things like that where you can get into this, but in this framework right now, that is not separately needed to be modeled. So yes.
So how much of this is like, so at the moment it was like there are two dimensions at which you are capturing utility.
Mhm.
So does this scale? I mean, like for instance, can you increase it to,
Yes.
okay.
So this specific, these two results that I've talked about, even if you had k roommates, square root n roommates,
Right.
as long as it extends to any sort of setting where your ultimate utilities are 0 and 1.
Okay.
So instead of minimum, if it was even maximum of the two. So our results will extend there. So it's a fairly like large things it does extend to, but it specifically works for this setting of 0, 1. Leon TF was the most sort of intuitive setting we could think of for it. So yeah, I guess pessimism was more intuitive for me than optimism. I don't know what that says, but okay.
So,
Yes.
following to that, like is that K fixed? Like all the rooms you have K roommates?
Right now,
Like,
we are assuming K-fix. There is some prior work with the additive, which has different rooms of different capacity. But, and again, they want to maximize social welfare. Strategy proofness is something we look at. Other people have not looked at it before. And again, possibly different trends and things, but people have looked at social welfare, approximations for social welfare for different rule sizes. But yes. There's also a little bit of work on fairness, not very good results with different room sizes also. But yeah. Okay. So just to recap, we look at social welfare maximization alone and with strategy proofness. We develop several maximal matching algorithms. I didn't talk about these, which form our polynomial time strategy proof mechanisms. And we need those because no alpha approximation to social welfare can be given by a strategy proof mechanism when you don't restrict how the values come from. And our main result for the paper is that you do get a maximum welfare strategy proof mechanism under binary Leon TF. Right? There is a lot of scope for future work. In particular, there was big gaps between the upper bound and the existing mechanism, so there's a lot of scope of closing these gaps. Another important question would be, can we get, what is the best bound we can get on strategy, with strategy proof mechanisms in polytime? That's also not known. All of the examples I gave, they would work for any exponential time setting. So what is the best bound with polytime is open. a problem that economists are very interested in is characterization of strategy proof mechanism. So if you want strategy proofness with A, B, C property, this looks like this mechanism. This is completely unexplored here for these type of matchings. Yes.
This seems to me like an interior programming problem.
Sure.
So how can we get a polynomial and anything?
No, approximations to we do have approximation. I can talk about these with say binary preferences even, right? So even with binary valuations, we know that
Relaxation, the LP relaxation.
you could go that route. Our current approaches are very combinatorial, but one approach we had was basically you have a polynomial number of triples. So you look at the triple that gives you the highest welfare, match that. Now look at remaining triples, choose the one that gives highest welfare, so on. This is like a maximal matching type of thing. That's a greedy algorithm because we have 3 things being matched at a time. It's a 1/3 approximation. If you had k things, it would be a 1/k approximation, right? So yeah. And this approximation actually works for non-binary any utility function, right? But yeah. Other future work can also be, can I go with the route Varun was saying was, can I weaken the requirement for strategy proofness and get better bounds on welfare? And as we were discussing, fairness is not studied really well. There is some very sort of just impossibility of NV freeness from the clique problem in this setting for very large rooms, but good versions of fairness is completely unexplored. So yeah. So I given so this is in case you want to have a look at the paper, there's a QR code. But yes, in the interest of time, I could just skip the next part of the talk and just finish, given there's a lot of time.
So you have about 20 minutes, let's say.
Okay.
15 to 20 minutes roughly.
Okay, let me then just give a quick overview of this work. Also with Hadi and this time with Tomasz. Also started at Penn State. It was an HCAI paper last year. Now it's in AIJ. So why do we care about fairness in delivery settings? Suppose you have these 3 people who wanted to do a computer science degree and then stopped midway and instead opened a cafe because they thought that would be more lucrative. And they decide, okay, I've opened this cafe. It is in this small town in the US. This is a place called Union in North Carolina, if I'm not wrong. And they've opened this cafe here. They decide, this is the US, the one has breakfast at home. I'm going to tell everyone in the neighborhood to get coffee on their way to work. How do I do that? I will print out some flyers, get on our bikes, and starting from our cafe, go to all of these locations. This is the idea, right? I'm just being a little fast. Now, having pursued and done an algorithms course in their life, they are first very despairing that, oh, TSP is a very hard problem, so we can't do anything good here. But then they look at the underlying graph and they're like, wait, this is looking like an unweighted tree, right? Let's route it at where our cafe is, and now we can do some tree traversals faster, and we probably can find some good solutions here, right? So the first idea is we're a small business, we don't have a lot of money. Let's minimize our fuel use. We have 3 branches coming out of the route. Let's each take 1 branch. So one allocation is denoted by pentagons, 1 by squares, and 1 by circles, right? Now, obviously, the person assigned the circles is very unhappy. Like, what is happening here? I have to travel all this distance. You guys are only going this far. So the person says, let's be fair. Let's go everywhere and we'll just take each alternate thing. And then the first person is like, hey, this is this is fair, but this has way too much fuel wasted, because if you're going all this way, you can just drop the flyers on the way. So then the third person is the peacemaker, and she suggests, let's do it this way, right? It's still largely disjoint, but also equal sized, equal amounts of distance, right? So with this, the other two people are like, okay, fine. Can't argue that much with this. So, okay. I am so fairness is very important, and people have looked at fairness from the angles of EF1 and MMS a lot. And I'm skipping the introduction in interest of time. But so our specific model is as follows. You are given a set of agents, and we specifically look at a tree graph to allow us to do routing and find optimal sized things in polytime. And you have a graph, and you have a special node called the hub. Every node other than the hub is a delivery location. So you have to deliver something at this location. And people are, when you assign, you can assign subsets of the nodes other than the hub. The cost that is incurred by people is the number of edges they travel to go to this set S, starting from and returning to the hub. This is a tree. There is a unique path between any two nodes. So you traverse each edge that you do traverse, you will traverse it twice. So we are just counting each edge exactly once, just scaling that down. Okay. This is a cost. In this case, people want to have as lower cost as possible, not go anywhere if possible. Possibly not going to happen, but let's see. Our aim is to allocate all of these vertices among the n agents as fairly and efficiently as possible. I will use this notation A, where A of I is the bundle I have allocated to agent I, right? Now, fairness for me will come in the two notions I was talking about. One is EF1. So EF1 means NV3 up to one order. I might get more cost than someone else, but if I were to remove one order from my assigned bundle, the cost reduces. Right? This is an EF1 is a relatively standard notion. We have just adapted it to our setting. The other notion is MMS, in this case called mini max share. Typically, it's something like you tell an agent they have to partition the items and then they get their least preferred bundle. Because we are assuming identical costs for agents, this becomes just minimizing the maximum cost incurred by anyone in this case. Right? This is fairness. We also care about efficiency still. And we look at efficiency from two angles. One is Pareto optimality. Pareto optimality means there should not be some reassignment of the vertices that at least one person is better off, but nobody is worse off, right? It's a local optimal kind of an idea. And the other thing we call social optimality, where we just want minimum sum of agents cost. It's the sum of the cost is the same as we had before social welfare, but now we have costs. And now we want minimum possible cost. With trees, you can actually find efficient solutions relatively easily. Let's look at a simple example. You have these 7 nodes. The hub is H. And now you want to divide these nodes among our 2 delivery agents. If you just wanted efficiency, it's easy. The minimum total distance is 7. One person can do everything. That's not fair. Or one person goes to A, the other person goes to B, C, D, E, F, G. Again, not fair. Fairness is a little more complicated, but fair solutions do exist. So EF1 here would look like this. So you have one agent going to nodes A, B, and G, the other person going to C, D, E, F. Right? And now this is fair, but it is not efficient. In fact, agent 1 can tell agent 2, let's swap G and C. Right? It is the same for you. But for me, the cost will significantly decrease. And in this case, you end up at the MMS mini-max cost allocation, where the maximum cost is minimized to 5. And you can see you cannot minimize this cost lower because someone has to go to G. And so, and whosoever goes there will get a cost of 5. Right? Okay. So with that in mind,
So
Yes.
there are like two objectives, right? The PO and the social. And just
yes. So you had two versions of efficiency, yes.
Okay, you are not optimizing both of them at the same time.
So anything that's socially optimal will be Pareto optimal,
Okay.
but not
So that's the theorem. So.
that's yes.
Okay.
It's not a theorem, it's just a thing. It's sorry.
If it's not Pareto optimal, you can improve it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yes, Surya.
So this is basically just a Chor's monotone instance, right? So you can get EF1 directly from your top
Yes,
rating.
correct. You can get
Where does the
MMS.
graph structure come into play?
Let me get into
Oh,
it. Okay. So we going back. So our the first thing that we look at is fairness alone, and alongside our two notions of efficiency. Fairness alone always exists, as Surya just pointed out. EF1 always exists. MMS also always exists. Because it's identical. The next question we had as computer scientists was, can you find it not this thing, but sorry, going back to the existence part. Fairness and efficiency together exist for MMS and PO, but other solutions need not exist. So a fair and socially optimal allocation need not exist. EF1 and Pareto optimal here need not exist, right? And then with computation, while finding EF1 alone is in polytime, all of the other problems are NP hard. In fact, we have a follow-up paper that shows, not me, but my co-author and someone else have a follow-up paper that show that the follow-up problems are actually W1 hard. So yeah, this is a stronger problem. Our next thing was, can we characterize instances where fair and efficient solutions actually exist? And there, where the graph structure comes in, is we show that anything that's EF1 and PO will necessarily be MMS. This is not something that happens in general. I don't know of any other setting where this is true, but this is my personal favorite result in this paper. We also give characterizations for social optimality, but yeah. What we then do is we give an XP algorithm to find all combinations of fairness and efficiency whenever they do exist. This is not an FPT, but an XP algorithm, and we use it to do a whole lot of detailed experimentation. Right?
So XP is the parameter is n, just the number of
N and M. So both
N
are
and
being
M.
used. So
What is M is the number of people?
M is so N is the number of agents, M is the number of
Oh, the number.
orders.
Okay.
Yes. So okay. So existence of EF1 is sort of, as Surya said, always exists for monotone valuations. EF1 and PO allocations need not exist. In fact, the example I just showed you is one such example where EF1 and PO will not exist. Because anything that's socially optimal will be Pareto optimal, EF1 and SO will also need not exist. Existence of MMS follows from something called Leximan optimality. So Leximan optimality is otherwise disjoint, but what it usually means is you look at all solutions, choose one that minimizes the highest cost. So is best to the worst off person. From this reduced set, you want to minimize the second highest cost, then the third highest, and so on. This must always be Pareto optimal, otherwise you will find something better. And always exists because it's an optimization based notion. And because you have identical costs, anything that's Leximan optimal will be MMS, where you just want to minimize maximum cost. And so MMS and PO are just sort of guaranteed to exist in this case. What we show in the same example I had before is that MMS and social optimality need not coexist. This was the example. Okay, So I'll quickly talk about how we show EF1 and PO. I'm not getting into this, is quite a lengthy proof. But what we first show for EF1 and PO is a useful lemma, where if you give me an EF1 allocation where the cost differences of the agents is more than 1, then I prove to you that it cannot be Pareto optimal. So there is always a Pareto dominating allocation or an allocation where someone is strictly has less cost and everyone else has same or lower cost, right? This, I just call these unbalanced. So cost difference is more than 1, right? Then what we show is that anytime you do have an EF1 and PO allocation, this must be Leximin optimal, which I just discussed was MMS, right? And then we can also show that if an allocation is balanced in our setting, then it must be EF1. So whenever a Leximin optimal allocation is balanced, is the only case where EF1 and PO can exist. This is just an overview. I'll skip this thing. I'll just quickly go over the XP algorithm. So the XP algorithm does something very complicated, unfortunately. It generates what we call the Pareto frontier. So here we have a set of allocations which covers the Pareto optimal allocations in terms of cost distributions. So every single Pareto optimal allocation need not be there, but the distributions of cost are represented, right? And agents are indifferent between allocations where everyone has the same costs. So
Let me take a follow. So in
Yes.
the sense that the Pareto optimal allocations that are not included here, there is something else that has that.
Equivalent.
Oh, I see.
yes.
I see. Oh.
So we call this a Pareto frontier, right? And so basically we generate this using this O of n plus 2 factorial m to the 3n by 2 time algorithm. Here n is the number of agents, m is the number of orders or the size of the graph minus the hub. And you can see that if the number of agents is constant, this is polytime. It's not great polytime, but it's polytime. Okay, and the way it works is you start bottom up, you start from the leaf, you use a DP to combine the Pareto frontiers of the kids with this node, and then you move up. It's it does a lot of heavy lifting, but it's not a very hard algorithm to understand intuitively, right? And this helps us find the Leximin optimal, which is MMS and PO. And because we had all of those characterizations, we can check the existence of all of our other different combinations. We also use this to do a lot of experiments, including how often in randomly generated instances are pair solutions existing. This is a very fun experiment actually. So we are superimposing 10,000 different Pareto frontiers. On the x-axis, you have difference in cost. So the degree of unfairness, 0 is fair, 400 is unfair. And on the y-axis is the sum of the agent's cost. So if the idea is if I allow there to be a little bit of unfairness, do you get a significant drop in the sum of the agent's cost? And turns out no. So this red line is like the median values here. And most of the time, if you allow for there to be differences in cost, the total cost does not decrease, or often it even sometimes it's not very clear here, but sometimes it goes up and down. And that's a structural dependent thing. We comment on that in the paper. But you also then see that the total increase in cost is not that much. You're going from 400 to 440. Sometimes it's 500.
So your algorithm was will set relevant rate actually computing one representative per cost vector, right?
Yes.
But that's not nuanced. It's not like that it's computing, it's also giving how many. So
No,
when you're
no, no,
computing median, that's the problem.
No, median in for the Pareto frontiers.
But yeah, so each cost vector is now like, so the counts are.
Yes, no. So we're taking median across the instances of this thing.
But several instances might have the same cost, that's the same.
Yes. So we have different instances are mapped.
Okay, okay. So for each instance so the random graph for each graph you're taking the so each instance is a random graph,
Yes,
a random tree.
Yes.
Right? And then you're taking these all the possible cost vectors,
yes, and mapping them.
mapping them to what?
In
The total
terms
cost
of, in
and
terms of
cost.
this, yes.
And then so what is the median over? So what's the thing on this?
Median is across these 10,000 different random drafts and
Okay.
each, so for each difference in cost, what is the median total cost?
Yes, but for each cost vector, you compute this total cost and difference in cost. Is that
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. No, not for each cost, yes,
each cost vector on the vertex here?
so each cost vector is, this is for agents of two.
Oh,
Two
okay,
agents,
okay.
so that's
So
sort of,
okay. But yes, so this median calculation does not take into account that there might be many assignments which give you the same cost.
yes, what I really care about is the cost vector itself, not just the number of this thing.
How many? that
Yes,
is the
yeah, the idea, like I said, it's if I,
Medians over both these things, right? Like even for an instance, there are many such cost vectors.
there are many, so for,
Oh, because that's what just the total cost and difference in cost determined you.
yes, because it's Pareto optimal, you will have,
And also like because it's two agents. So
Yes.
then difference and total are
yes,
that's
yes,
it.
yes, yeah. So yes, because you can shuffle things around. We do something similar for 3 and 4 also. It's a XP algorithm. It doesn't work very well for a large number of agents, but I mean it works, it just takes a lot of time that we didn't have. But yes, so here what you see is there's not a lot of increase in the sum of the agent's costs. So the next thing we look at is, okay, what is the efficiency loss because of we insist on fairness? This is called price of fairness. Some of you might have heard about this. I promise I'm finishing. Where basically we're looking at the ratio of the minimum possible social cost under a fair allocation to the minimum possible social cost, which in our case will always be M because it is a tree. And while we first actually look at the observed price of fairness, again, we are generating 10,000 different random trees for each sort of graph size. Red is again the median observed value.
There's two agents again? How many agents?
This is for 2, but we do it for 2, 3, and 4.
Okay.
So we give so what we find experimentally is that we have actually very low median price of MMS. We look at only price of MMS because price of for EF1 need not always exist and such, and it won't be fair. We also give very tight theoretical bounds, but the theoretical price of fairness is order of M minus N. So in practice, the worst case upper bound might be order of M minus N, but in practice it's quite small. So that was nice that we found. But yes, okay. So with this, I'll quickly recap something we just discussed. We look for fairness alone. So that's the first column, fairness alone, and then alongside efficiency. And fair allocation will always exist, but fair and efficient are only guaranteed to exist for MMS and PEO. We look at computing fair and efficient solutions. Again, only EF1 can be computed in polytime. Everything is NP hard and shown by a follow-up paper to be W1 hard when parameterized by the number of agents. We give a bunch of characterizations for the combinations that don't necessarily exist. And one of them shows that anytime an EF1 and PO allocation will exist, it will be MMS. And thus, whenever an EF1 and SO allocation exists, it must also be MMS, SO is PO. We have this XP algorithm that finds all combinations of fairness and efficiency. We give a whole bunch of detailed experimentation and also some tight bounds on price of fairness, which I did not show right now. But yes, So this paper has had quite a bit of subsequent work already. In terms of, so there's a paper in this year's AMAS that looked at fairness in repeated delivery settings. I think a subset of these authors have last week uploaded a paper, a follow-up paper called multi-stage assignment. I'm still not familiar with it. So Hadi and Shimon um, looked at a follow-up setting where they relaxed Pareto optimality to something they call non-wastefulness. And they look for MMS and non-wasteful allocations. This is the paper that shows the W1 hardness. Then I have a follow-up paper that extends this to 2 dimensions, of course, now not just from edges, but also from vertices. This is in submission right now. But despite all this, there is a lot of scope for future work still. You can look for approximate MMS and efficiency. Typically in fair division settings, MMS does not exist for non-identical setups, right? So approximate MMS alongside efficiency is very much worth pursuing. I don't know of any published results on it right now. You can also go in terms of specific types of graphs. So maybe you have a grid, a path, a cycle, some caterpillar, other insect named tree. There's a lot of trees named after insects. You can also look at heterogeneous agents, of course, which is an interesting direction, of course. So yeah, there's a lot of work here to be done, and if you're interested in the paper, this is the link. You can also email me if you have questions. So this concludes the technical part of the talk. Just to talk about some future research directions. Of course, the papers I talked about have a lot of future work, so I'm not repeating that. In general, I have an interest in using sort of these game theoretic approaches to solve these everyday problems that we might encounter. So in some of the themes that I have not talked about, which I think are really interesting to explore, one thing I think is faster and better matches on like ride hailing platforms. So this might not be a Mumbai problem, I've come to realize, but in Bangalore, for example, if you book a cab, very often your cab gets rejected because the driver does not like your location, especially if you're an IISC. So, and this can happen multiple times if you're in IISC. So, can we now take drivers' preferences into account while giving this? Can we have them give preferences over certain locations? If there's no driver in that location, then maybe we want to give an incentive, an extra fee for them to go. But then is that giving them an incentive to pretend to hit certain locations? So there is a whole host of issues that can be studied in this space. I like theoretically, also experimentally, there's a lot of scope. A completely different direction is in terms of incentivizing academic integrity. So game theory in the past has been used to design and like model and design incentives for classroom settings. And academic integrity has become a lot more vital, especially with the rise of ChatGPT, because Sam Altman, I think last week said something like India has the largest student base using ChatGPT to finish assignments. I'm sure no one in this room does that, but I know my students in Australia definitely did. So can we use some sort of games in to design either assessment policies that incentivize less cheating or verification policies to try and see if people have actually learned the material, right? And overall, I'm interested in this direction of incorporating real world constraints into theoretical setups. So one additional direction is bounded rationality. So typically we assume, oh yeah, people are really smart. So if they see something as strategy proof, they won't lie. But it has been observed people are still lying in strategy proof mechanisms. So can we design mechanisms that are obviously strategy proof or obviously fair? And there's a huge scope of things there. And overall, one other thing that has not been studied that well in fairness, especially, is online arrivals. And can we cater fairness divisions to the online setting and not just try to attain older notions of sort of offline versions of fairness? But yeah, so thank you all for patiently listening. Any questions? Yes, Surya.
Can you go to the set of results you had for EF1
Uh,
for the delivery agent?
Yep.
So the question now is your input has a fixed number of agents, right? Delivery agents. So now if you're saying I could increase the number of delivery agents so that EF1 and PO will exist, what is the minimum number of agents I need so that it increases? So it's sort of like a coloring problem where you're asking for the minimum number of colors you want to give so that the distances from your hub or route is like more or less equal.
So okay, unofficially, I'll tell you this problem has not been studied. What we have a result on is if you fix the same number of agents and the same number of nodes, I can always find a hub location for which EF1 and PO necessarily exist.
I see.
But
And this is for trees.
yes, but the problem with EF1 and PO not existing is not the number of agents, but rather the graph structure. So if you're on a path, right, and you have the hub at the end, and everything else is in a line. To be EF1, you will try and send everyone as far as possible, but that won't be Pareto optimal. So even if you keep adding people, it won't be Pareto.
Okay.
So
So I think let's just take questions offline. Maybe
Sure.
you can say thank the speaker once more.
thank you.
So, the point under so essentially